We got 3 ladies, 2 men tonight. I just do that because I remember Bhakti Vasudeva Swami. He does that. He likes to even it out somehow. So, this is the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Right. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Purport. As already explained, the Lord in His incarnation as Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra. Here, the Lord is giving, in summary, the contents of the Vedanta Sutra. He says that the living entities who are innumerable can be divided into 2 classes, the fallible and the infallible. The living entities are eternally separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When they are in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta, and the Sanskrit words given here, Kshara Sarvani Bhutani, mean that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but that there is no disunity. They are all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as creation. But since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. According to the statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, there are 2 classes of living entities. The Vedas give evidence of this, so there's no doubt about it. The living entities who are struggling in this world with this mind and 5 senses have their material bodies which are changing. As long as a living entity is conditioned, his body changes due to contact with matter. Matter is changing, so the living entity appears to be changing. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual world, the body does not change. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death. All exists in oneness. Kshara Sarvani Bhutani. Any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being, Brahma, down to a small ant, is changing its body. Therefore, they are all fallible. In the spiritual world, however, they are always liberated in oneness. So, birth, growth, duration, reproduction, and then dwindling. So, I'm almost 50 years old, so I'm in the dwindling stage right now. Pretty soon, I'll be in the vanishing stage. It's a very sobering kind of verse. So the verse again is, there are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. A little musical accompaniment to the verse. That's good. Krishna is very musical. He likes music. This chapter is pretty interesting. The evolution of the chapter itself, Chandrasekhar Swami went through it. It starts out where Krishna is, explaining to Arjuna how the material world is like a upside down banyan tree. And a banyan tree is usually very, I don't know if you've seen any, or at least a picture of it. Banyan tree is very large. It's a very kind of heavy kind of tree. And the branches are pretty much growing all over the place. And once they become deeply rooted, it's a very heavy tree to sort of move around or cut down. But Krishna basically is giving the analogy of this tree and then explaining to Arjuna that The spiritual world is the original reality. It's the original place where we come from. And this world is a reflection of that. Thank you. Is a reflection of the spiritual world. Just like in the spiritual world, there's all, just like here in the material world, we have varieties. We have people of different personalities. We have different kinds of flowers, different kinds of trees, different kinds of beasts, animals, all kinds of living entities, different kinds of aspect to the whole creation. And it's not just everybody's the same and everything is the same. There's so much variety, even in the material world. The material world is simply a reflection of the spiritual world, and the origin in the spiritual world is so much variety, much more than here. We can't even conceive of it. So Krishna tries to hint at certain things in this way to make us understand, not just Arjuna obviously, but make us understand that as it's a reflection of the real thing, it's temporary, and it has these different stages of birth, growth, duration, reproduction, dwindling, and then vanishing. These are the changes that we undergo as embodied living entities, because this body is temporary. So this reality that we're experiencing is also temporary. And the way to cut down this tree, cut down our misconception that we are this body, Krishna says, there's a special weapon for that. Anybody know what the weapon that Krishna says to Arjuna is?
No.
Yes, detachment actually. Knowledge too. You have to have the knowledge to be detached. But the specific acts that Krishna refers to here is detachment. This can come very, very gradually for some, and for the most part, the process is gradual for a lot of us. We are not yet ready to sort of what they say, pull the Band-Aid. We go at it very slowly. We delay the inevitable. Actually, we as devotees, aspiring devotees and devotees, we have the knowledge. But to get to the stage of detachment from the knowledge, that's when the knowledge actually kicks in. That's when the knowledge actually becomes vigyan. Gyan means knowledge. Vigyan means realized knowledge. So in order for us to enter into the realm of realized knowledge, where we're walking around the world and we can actually see what this verse is saying, oh, everybody around in the material world that I'm looking at, all the people I'm encountering, the people I see walking in the street, they're actually, it's true what Krishna says, they are fallible. Anybody have an idea what the word fallible means? You can raise your hand.
Falling.
That's true. Fall is in the word fallible, and infallible. That's true. So that's a very good. Yeah, there's several definitions in the dictionary. The prominent one is, which is interesting. It's tendency to commit mistakes. So we can see that it happens very easily in the world, even in our own activities. We can see that we can make mistakes. But one interesting definition of the word, which I think applies to our topic in a spiritual sense, is to deceive. Deception is also one definition of fallible. So when we leave the shelter of the internal energy in the spiritual world, and we enter into the material realm and take shelter of the external energy of Krishna, we become fallible. So in that sense, we become deceptive. We have this covering of gross earth, water, fire, air, ether. This is the gross, what you can feel and touch. And then the subtle body that we have as mind, intelligence, and the false ego. So they all immediately cover us as spiritual living entities, and we become, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, who's a spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. He said it's the world of the cheaters and the cheated. So everyone around you is somehow either getting cheated or they're trying to cheat somebody. I know this is like a maybe bleak or negative thing. You can meet so many nice, happy people out there. Well, how is he trying to cheat me? Or it may not be applicable necessarily all around, but to some degree or other, because of our reinforced bodily conception and the fact that we're denying our true selves as eternal parts and parcels of Krishna, and originally infallible. Infallible means perfect. It means not prone to cheating, not deceiving anyone, just honest, pure. Krishna is the supreme pure, and living entities that come from Krishna in their spiritual state, in devotional service, absorbed in loving service to Krishna, are very kind, very honest. The descriptions in the Gita, humility, pridelessness, all the qualities that you would associate with good character are intrinsically within us as spiritual parts and parcels of God. We're not meant to be, as you see in the world today politically, so much political climate is so severe in terms of wars everywhere, people killing each other. There's so many difficult circumstances, and so many people are actually spending their day, morning to night, trying to figure out how to hurt other people or cause harm to animals. And millions of animals, get slaughtered all the time, as do millions and millions of people throughout all the wars that are going on. It's a misdirected civilization. That's what the Srimad Bhagavatam says. It's a misdirected civilization, and the only way that the civilization can regain its proper direction under the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is for a spiritual revolution to happen. We see a lot of people going on protests because of gun violence. They go on protests because of so many different things they're wrong. They're not nice things that are happening in the world. But everyone is protesting. Everyone wants this revolution, this change. They're looking for something that's going to satisfy the inner core of their heart. Each one of us is also looking for that. But we don't really know where to look. We have no idea. So the spiritual master who's infallible, someone like Srila Prabhupada, comes and instructs us how we can overcome this very strong misconception that we're this body. And the revolution that's referred to for us is a spiritual revolution. And where that happens is not necessarily a collective revolution. In one sense, yes, the more devotees, the more together we gather to try to spread Krishna consciousness and engage in the activities of Krishna consciousness, so we all benefit. But the spiritual revolution is the change in the heart that needs to happen. It's something that's there. It's eternally there. It's Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, Sadhya Kabunoi, Shravanadi Shudhachite Kurai Udoy. So this verse is a very nice verse. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. And so we have Krishna Prema, love for Krishna, deeply rooted within our being. It's part of who we are. It's the Ananda, the bliss that Nur Hari Prabhu was talking about last week. That's a byproduct of who we are. And this is deep love for Krishna. It's in the heart. And the way this revolution happens in our own heart is by applying the process of devotional service through hearing and chanting. So Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna. So you Shrinvatam Svakata. Kata, talk about Krishna. Anything related to Krishna talks about Krishna. If you're reading a book about Krishna, if you're listening to a lecture about Krishna, if you're remembering Krishna, anything connected to the Lord has potency, has spiritual potency, and that potency has, through applying it little by little, has the power to eliminate the darkness and the rock that's formed in our heart. Right now, you can imagine our heart, and then you can imagine that there's a big rock, and then this weapon of detachment, this axe, is helping, and then the knowledge and hearing about Krishna is helping just chip away at this really rock hard stone. It's just every time you engage in some service, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, any of the 9 devotional service processes, the stone is getting chipped away little by little. If you're very fortunate, if you're very surrendered, then you can chip away at it more and more quickly as time goes on, as you're understanding that how time is going by so quickly, you don't have much of it left. Like I said, I'm in the dwindling stage now. So it's a wake-up call for me to, hey, you can see other people leaving their bodies. I've seen a few family members leave their bodies not that long ago. I have one that's now also leaving their body, and it's just, they're in shock that their whole reality, what they're worked for all their life, the identity that they've developed, this understanding of the world that they have, the bank balance, the house, the car, the wife, the kids, the whole thing is basically a few moments away from being wiped clean. Sometimes, the relatives, after someone leaves, they remember the person for a little bit. They'll remember the day that they died, and every year they do a little ceremony. And as the years pass and time goes on, and basically it just dwindles into a very faded memory. So this fallible identity that we're so attached to, we have to let it go. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who is the Guru Maharaj of Bhakti Vasudeva Swami, a very nice Vaishnava. He has a video on YouTube called Die Before Dying. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that. It's very intense. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he accepted. He said, okay. He wasn't that old. I think maybe 50 something, right? Something like that. Very powerful preacher. He went so many places and did so much nice service for Srila Prabhupada. Not just in Africa, but in Russia, in America as well, the Library Party. And his main point is try to accept the fact that you're going to die. So it's not to make this like a bleak thing, but to understand that we're fallible means that there's an end point to this existence. At one point, sooner than later, it's going to creep up on us, and it's going to happen before we even can realize or accept it or understand it. It'll happen just real quick. Some people it's fast, some people get a disease little by little, or just through old age, you start to realize, okay, I don't have a long time here. So the fallibility, because we're in this, body that has all these changes that Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, these changes are occurring without even us noticing. Like we had a 5-year-old body, next thing 10 years old, then we're teenagers, and then we're in college, and then we start working, and we get married, we have a family, and then our kids are growing up, they're in college, and the next thing you know, you're 67 years old. And what are you doing? If you have no spiritual knowledge, there's no shelter, but if you have some spiritual knowledge, then you can apply it. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami was saying, try to make amends with everything in the world that you feel is holding you back. Try to do it now, whatever it is. You may have some relationship issues with people that you wanted to work out. You might have some internal strong attachment to something that you want to work on. You're delaying it, you're postponing it. You think maybe one day it'll go away, or one day things will change. Try to deal with all that now. Death in a material conception for someone who has little or no spiritual knowledge is very fearful. Is the fear of uncertainty. What's that verse? Nehabi krama nashosti pratyavayo navidyate svalpam apyasadharmasya trayate mahatobhaya. And this spiritual, in this endeavor, spiritual endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. Anything you do in Krishna consciousness stays with you. And also, it'll protect you if you make a little bit of advancement in spiritual life from the most dangerous type of fear. And the most dangerous type of fear, does anyone know what that is? That's right. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, going down to the lower species of life. If you stop a person on the street and you tell them, "Hey, man, you gotta, they're not gonna understand what you're speaking about." So, Prabhupada is saying this here. You cannot, the conception of all this is not applicable to someone who just has a heavy material conception. So they're so much ingrained in this fallible identity that we try to explain to them there's real danger, and the reason why you're fearful is because you haven't, really taken shelter of spiritual activity. And anything can help you, the smallest little thing. And Prabhupada said that even if you turn a screw for Krishna, Krishna will always remember you doing that. He won't forget it. A little thing, like a small gesture you offer Krishna, patram pushpam palam toyam, if someone offers me water, a leaf, a flower, I'll accept it. And what Krishna wants, he wants priti purvakam, he wants a loving ecstasy. He doesn't want something that's going to be given to him with some pride. He wants something to be given in a humble way, in an ecstatic way, in a loving way. Just like our godbrother Anubhava, who's been a pujari here for Radha Govinda for I think 27 years, continuously, with non-stop. He's daily offering to Radha Govinda in loving ecstasy, worship. Every single day he wakes them up in the morning. And then during the day he does one or two artiks. And he has love. So loving ecstasy, that's how it's done, And he gets a lot of maha too. So he's a good person to know. Thank you, Anubhava. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Very kind devotee. And I was having a conversation with him, and at one point, I was telling him, Prabhu, I'm so, it's so nice. You did the right thing. You just surrendered. You didn't miss out on anything. I said, I tried you didn't miss out on anything, Prabhu. You did the right thing. You made the right choice. And, the love for Radha Govinda, that's it. That's where it's about. It's not about, trying to figure out what this world is and, doing 1,000,001 things. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Like the simplicity of a dedication and a life dedicated to coming close to Krishna. You can't measure that level of satisfaction. All our material attempts at happiness, all our hopes and dreams. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And by the time you start getting a little bit more towards the, you know, older stage in life, then you start to think, wow, I'm not going to have time to fulfill all these desires. And even if I wanted to, the body I have is not in the shape that it used to be, so I won't be able to enjoy it the same way. How can I? The body is just not reciprocating. You know, you want to eat some really nice food, well, the body is not going to digest it very easily. You're going to suffer. You know, my father, he's diabetic. He goes to the restaurant. There's like one thing he can have on the menu, and even that, if he eats it, he'll feel terrible for hours afterwards. It's you know, no matter what pills you take, you have, you know, that's just the way the body is. But he had a pizza one time. We went for lunch. He had a pizza, and the only thing he can eat was some of the cheese. He couldn't eat anything else from the pizza. So it's quite interesting that someone is really struggling to enjoy, but there's absolutely so many restrictions on the type of enjoyment they want. You know, so Srila Prabhupada is encouraging us in this purport to kind of look beyond our own reality, which is very limited. And he says, there's no old age in the spiritual world. There's no death, and there's no birth. We have an identity. Each one of us, just like we have a name here, just like we have a goal, a purpose, a drive, emotion, desires. Desire is the key. Desires. So we have so many of these kind of desires, but they're not geared toward pleasing Krishna as the supreme, as the center. They're geared towards pleasing ourselves. We put ourselves in the center, and then we think, oh, okay, I'm the one that's supposed to get the enjoyment. But Krishna says, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwara, that he's the enjoyer. And so if we rearrange our life in such a way that we try to please Krishna by some activity that we do every day, as much as possible, we reform our original consciousness. Because by nature we're servants, we're not masters. We come here and immediately we think, I'm the master, I'm the controller. Each one of us has that tendency on a subtle level, even if we don't apply it in a very general sense on our daily lives. Very subtly, our consciousness is programmed in such a way that we think we're the masters. And actually, we're nowhere near being a master. We're bound up, we're shackled in such a inconceivable way by the false ego, by the three modes of material nature. They're so powerful. Srila Prabhupada compares them to ropes, very tight ropes, and we're right now we're all shackled by them, and the senses are directing us or misdirecting us constantly away from Krishna consciousness, more into material mentality, material desire, and less towards spiritual desire. So we have to sort of, the analogy that was given that I heard once is two dogs fighting, right? Internally, right? I don't know if anyone's heard this analogy. And one of them's a good dog and the other one's not a very good dog. He's a bad dog. So, which one is going to win the fight? So we, huh?
The one we feed the most.
That's right. That's exactly the answer. The one you feed the most. And the tendency we have is to feed the wrong dog. But we come here together to help each other cultivate the proper mentality and to feed our spiritual senses, which also need nourishment, either through prasadam, through kirtan, through reading Prabhupada's books, reading about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, that we're feeding our spiritual senses. And we're hopefully getting to the point where our purification is deep enough that we start to feel something in our heart changing. That you actually can feel Krishna in your life, then you know that there's a reciprocation. The proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So we can see, Prabhupada asked his disciples one time, how do you know Krishna's God? And disciples gave different answers, And then one disciple said, well, you can feel him, Srila Prabhupada. He said, yes, you can feel him. You can actually feel Krishna. Therefore, this is proof that Krishna's there. In the next verse, Krishna speaks about the fact that he enters into everything. So he enters as Kshiradakshaya Vishnu, the super soul, Paramatma. First he enters into the universe, then he enters into the planets, and then he enters into everyone's heart, and then he enters into the atom. Prabhupada said, everyone says God is great, but he's the greatest, the biggest, but they don't realize that God can also become the smallest. He can enter into the atom. And by his entering into all the aspects of the material creation, in this chapter, he says that he's the sun, the moon, fire. He also says that he's the fire of digestion, without which we would all be dead. We can't digest the food we eat. And then Krishna enters like that, and he gives all these kind of facilities for us in order to guide us to become Krishna conscious. If you have any doubt what the purpose of human life is, it's simply one thing. It's to become Krishna conscious. That's the purpose of your life. This is the goal that we should all have that as our goal in life. It doesn't mean we can't have other goals, but the primary goal in life is to become Krishna conscious. That's if you want to move from the section of being a fallible living entity to again becoming infallible and eternal loving service to Krishna, then the one thing you have to do is engage in devotional service to whatever degree you can, so that you can make the switch back into your original personality, into your original loving relationship with Krishna. We have a very intimate loving relationship with Krishna, each one of us, and it's unique. Krishna loves each one of you in a very specific way, and it's so satisfying. It's not at all in any way, shape, or form dissatisfying. It satisfies you so much that Krishna is happy, you're happy, and you're feeling complete. Krishna is complete. So in a relationship, he's perfect. He's reciprocal on every level, more than we can ever imagine. You just try to picture the person who created everything. The simplest thing, like a butterfly. It's amazing. Flower, all the fruits are just on this planet alone. It's brilliant. The sun itself is putting out so much energy. In the Brahma Samhita, the sun is compared to the eye of the Lord. And at each moment, it's giving so much energy all over the creation. This is just one planet that Krishna created. He also resides within that planet. And he gives light to each and every resident on each planet in this universe. He allows the food to grow for each living being on each planet through the sun. And he's giving heat through the sun. When I'm looking at a sunset here on planet Earth, there's another being on another planet also looking at the sun. They're looking at the same sun. And that sun is giving them so many, amenities for free. Krishna is not an electrical company knocking on your door. You got to pay your bill, or I'm going to cut you off. He's giving the sunlight, the sunshine, the warmth of the sun freely to the good soul and the bad soul, to the good dog and the bad dog. He doesn't discriminate. He's very kind that way. And we have a tendency to blame Krishna for a lot of things. I know every time I go through a difficult time, I ask Krishna why, and I try to subtly try to turn it on him somehow. And it's a negotiation, and you start negotiating after a while, you realize things aren't really changing. And you're like, well, you just start being nice. And like, oh, Krishna, please, I'm offering you this, I'm offering you that. Can you help out? And it's nice in one sense that we develop this kind of exchange with Krishna somehow. We have a relationship, so we could see, how he's reciprocating and how sometimes it appears that he's very quiet. Although he's present in our heart, he's still working things out that are going to happen 10 years from now. He's kind of figured it all out before we even have figured it out. Like, he knows where we'll be in 10 years. According to our personality, according to our activity, he pretty much knows what's going to happen. He even says in the Bhagavad-gita, I know past, present, and future. It's inconceivable. Well, we can't even conceive of it. But for him, it's very easy. It's not a mystery. Beginning from the first created being, Brahma, down to the small ant, everyone is changing their body. So Brahma is the most advanced living being in this creation. Our Brahma is a four-headed Brahma. And he basically is like compared to the architect of the universe. And as an architect, he has the duty and the responsibility to make the whole universe function from the beginning of creation all the way up until the end. He is mainly in charge of creating everything. So Krishna gives him, his home is a lotus flower, and it's consisting of seeds, which are planets, and also all the living entities reside in that golden lotus flower, and he projects where all the planets are supposed to go, and he puts all the living entities in those planets where they're supposed to be, and he basically undergoes a whole process, and then Krishna tells him, okay, don't worry, this has been done many times before, the process of creation, don't be fearful. Sometimes he's afraid, he's hesitant. Krishna gives him confidence, you just do this, you just do that. Tene Brahma Hrita, I'll just give you instruction from the heart, how you do it. And then he stresses the point that this has already been done so many times before. So Bhutva Praliyate is repeating constantly. Material creation. Just like when a new city is being built, automatically the government, they build hospitals and they build prisons. They know people will get sick, and they know that there's going to be some criminals. So the material creation is also existing because somehow or other, some spirit souls, they want to be rebellious. So that's the purpose of the material creation. But this is a good prison in the sense that it's a rehabilitation center also. When we go to the temple, there's a word for the temple called mandir. Anybody knows what mandir means? Radha Govinda Mandir, yes.
Shelter of the mind.
That's right. And Bhakti Churu Swami one time said it's the hospital for the mind. To re-emphasize, the fact that we need something like that in order to progress in this world. So Krishna provides that. Help us. The whole Bhagavad Gita is meant to help us transition from the fallible stage to the infallible stage. That's the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the chapter 12, the main process of doing that is devotional service. Yeah, it's chapter Does anybody have any questions so far? Oh.
Thank you. Thank you for the lesson. You mentioned an example of someone not being able to enjoy.
Yes.
But the whole idea is that we are not the enjoyers, and that Krishna is the one who enjoys.
Yes.
Isn't that a person who doesn't enjoy even unconsciously? Isn't that kind of like a blessing in disguise? And is it? I don't know how else to put it, but even though the person may not be practicing Krishna consciousness, not being able to enjoy is a good thing, no?
It depends on the person. Some people can become a little bit detached. Say, all right, I'm not able to enjoy in this way. So let me develop some detachment and let me accept that this is happening to me. But because people don't have Krishna as their shelter, the tendency is for frustration, become very frustrated. Just like, I don't know, the other day I was waiting online at the bank. There's an older lady in front of me and something didn't go right. She got really, really angry and frustrated. Like you could just tell, it's like a lifetime of frustration vented toward the teller at the bank. It was like oh my God. It's the end of the world. It was like, oh my goodness, calamities beyond, it's like something. And just they have there's no escape. You realize everything is dwindling, and very soon you're going to be vanishing, just like the purport said. Very few people in the material conception of life will embrace the fact that they can't enjoy anymore. Very few people. And if they can't enjoy physically, they'll try to somehow roundabout way try to enjoy mentally, intellectually. They will gear each aspect of their senses towards some shelter where they can feel that they're enjoying, up until the very last minute. And just really grasping at the fact that I don't want to let this go. Prabhupada gives an example of this one big industrial in India who was leaving his body, who was dying from an illness. So he called the doctor. He said, I'll pay you, can you extend my life for a few more years? I still have things I have to do. And the doctor said, there's nothing I can do. So imagine the level of, attachment or frustration. These things, it's inconceivable to us because we're very fortunate in the sense that Krishna came into our life because of Srila Prabhupada. So we have the shelter. We know where to seek our answers. On a daily level, we have other devotees that we can talk to, and we have Shastra. Astra means weapon. So we have a weapon in the form of Shastra to cut down our illusion. It's powerful. What Krishna says here, he's not mincing words, he's not embellishing, he's not diluting. You have a drink, it's just condensed, he's not diluting it, he's just giving you the 45-minute to an hour conversation he had with Arjuna. He's shrinking all that knowledge, condensing it in such a potent, this is it. This is what your life means. This is what the goal of your life is. And this is how you do it. This is how you attain spiritual, eternal life. And it's very potent. Bhagavad-gita is very potent. It's, in one sense, only devotees can really, and Krishna says in the Gita, only devotees can accept this knowledge because it's heavy. If you try to explain any section of the Bhagavad-gita to someone who's not familiar with it, some of it might seem very extreme to them, But Krishna at the end is demanding surrender, And then 5,000 years ago, he asked the same thing of Arjuna. He said, Sarvadharma Parityajya. abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And then a little over 500 years ago, Krishna came back as Lord Chaitanya, and he said basically surrender to Krishna. So he's saying the same thing, but in a different way. I mean, he's Krishna himself. Hare Krishna, Matthew Prabhu, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Jai. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, no problem. I can continue. I just wanted to see if there was any. I don't think I said anything that was too complicated. Or I'm trying to sort of glorify the fact that Krishna entering into everything also means that Krishna is sending his pure devotees all the time to come here and to give us spiritual knowledge. Krishna is unlimited. We don't have any doubt about that in terms of, God, unlimited. But he has a limitation, and the one limitation he has is that he himself cannot, in one sense, appear before us and give us Krishna consciousness. Of course, he can do that, but he likes to have his devotees do that. So he sends different devotees all along from the beginning to the end of creation on a regular basis. They're coming to give us Krishna consciousness. And if you want to know who is infallible and what it means, what kind of person is infallible, it's basically, you have many, many different examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam of all these different personalities. The most intimate for us is Srila Prabhupada, because here is a pure devotee who dedicated his entire life to preparing how to spread Krishna consciousness all over this planet. And within a very short time, a little over 10 years, he was able to spread Krishna consciousness all over the planet. And even after he left the planet, he physically left the planet, he's the movement that he started is still growing. And we're in the 50th year only, and it's going to keep growing because of his potency, his purity. That's someone who's infallible. If you ever have a doubt, am I Krishna conscious? We're basically children in Krishna consciousness. We're segueing into a more Krishna conscious reality, but someone like Srila Prabhupada is the topmost example for us of what it means to be selfless, pure devotee. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. Seeing Krishna with the eyes of prema at every moment within the heart. Srila Prabhupada says that that's the state of the pure devotee. The pure devotee sees Krishna in his heart at every moment. It's inconceivable. You're actually seeing God in your heart at every moment. How amazing must that be? It's beyond yet Krishna's saying, if you surrender unto me, that is what you'll get. You can get there. But there's a platform to getting there. There's a formula. There's association of devotees, cultivating devotional service, cultivating an inward surrender, really praying. One Naranjan Swami recently said in one lecture, is the one thing we don't do so much in the Hare Krishna movement. In one sense, we do Kirtan, we do japa, but we don't engage enough in praying. Actually, getting down on your hands and knees and praying. It's part of our tradition. It's part of our culture. Many great, great devotees just prayed to Krishna. Please help me, please guide me. So instilling prayer within our life will help us also and it's another ingredient that we can use. There's a couple of really nice stories also in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the potency of pure devotees and how you can see someone who's infallible can transform the heart of even the darkest and cruelest type of person. There's a story that I heard recently. Actually, I read it recently. It's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but I read it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya was restating the story of Rigari, the hunter. Does anybody know the story? So, Narada Muni was in the spiritual world doing some service, and he decided one day. Does anybody know who Narada Muni is? Okay, he's a great sage, and he's typically shown in different drawings with a Veena instrument, and he, as a transcendental spaceman, Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita that of all the great sages, he's Narada Muni. So Narada Muni has the ability, as a pure devotee, to travel anywhere in the spiritual world and anywhere in the material world in the self-same body.
Is he the one that taught
Vyasadeva?
Prahlad?
Yes. He's also the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Vyasadeva. He's the spiritual master of many different personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's basically like superstar, if you wanna use mundane terminology. In the spiritual world, everybody knows Narada Muni. In the material world, certainly the demigods, they know Narada Muni. And we on the Earth planet have an idea who Narada Muni is to some degree. So there's the potency of an infallible living entity. One living entity like Narada Muni can transform so many hearts, but the specific story Lord Chaitanya was re-quoting from the Bhagavatam, and that at one point, after doing some meditation in the spiritual world and doing some service, he decided he wanted to go to the earthly realm, and specifically he wanted to go bathe in the tree Vani, the place where the three rivers meet. I think it's the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the Saraswati, right? So those three rivers, there's a point where they all meet together. They're very holy rivers. Krishna bathes in the Jamuna. Lord Chaitanya bathes in the Ganges. The Ganges comes from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. It's very potent. So he decided, yes, I want to go make a trip like that. So he made the trip, bathed, and after his bath, he said, let me walk through the forest a little bit. As he's walking through this forest, he looks and he sees a rabbit, half dead, just squirming and in pain. And he's becoming disturbed. And he walks a little further and he sees a deer in the same situation, half dead, squirming in pain. And then he walks a little further and he sees another animal, I believe it was birds, always in complete anguish, suffering, half killed. And he keeps on walking, and all of a sudden, a group of animals just flee and run away because they see him. They're afraid. And out of the bush comes this crazy-looking hunter. At least he looks crazy in the paintings that I've seen. Just looks like he's really messed up, you know. And he goes up to Narada Muni. He said, "Oh, what are you doing? You startled the animals. I want to, that's my prey. I've been waiting here for hours, and I was about to, kill them, and then, that's my living. What are you doing?" So Narada Muni just, immediately he understood the situation. Oh, okay. This is a hunter. And he said, "Okay, sir, I will leave. I will leave you alone. But first, can you answer one question for me?" So Mrigari, even though angry and upset at Narada Muni, just by a few moments association with a pure devotee, became a little bit more friendly to him. And he said, "Well, sir, I, I will answer your question. So Narada Muni says, why are these animals half killed? Why don't you just kill them right away? Why? He says, well, I'm a hunter. My father was a hunter before me, and he taught me that this is how you get pleasure. This is how you enjoy, by half killing the animal, and it gives me great pleasure to do that. So Narada Muni said, can you just kill the animal completely? Can't you just do that from now on? And Mrigari was very doubtful, and then he said, okay, but how will you maintain me? This is my living. He said, okay, you want to know? If you just follow what I tell you, I'll maintain you. I'll make sure you're maintained and your whole family's maintained. You just follow my instruction. You break your bow and you stop killing animals. And right now, if you make this, I promise you I'll maintain you and your family for the rest of your life. So the change in heart was already happening. And before he even could really think about it, Mrigari, he said, okay, I'll do that. Somehow or other, within a few moments of being with a pure devotee. And just imagine the potency, the spiritual purity and the potency of someone like Narada Muni. Now, when someone kills an animal, it's bad, but when your whole lifetime is, your consciousness is really bad, and you're definitely going to the most dangerous type of place after you die. But that potency just chipped away at all the violence and the ignorance. And Mrigari agreed. He broke his bow, and then he said, all right, what is your instruction? Narada Muni said, well, you have a hut over here. You take a tulsi plant and you worship her. You offer prayers to her. You give her water. And you chant the holy name of Krishna every day, you and your wife, and you'll be maintained. And he said, oh, okay, I'll do that, somehow or other. And on the way where Narada Muni was going to show him where to live, he went to each and every animal and sort of just woke them up, and they came back to life. All the animals that he had killed, that Mrigari had killed. So he performed a miracle, and nobody can bring anybody back to life, but Narada Muni just did that. And that increased Mrigari's faith. So Mrigari started living this lifestyle. And the first day, he's watering Tulsi, worshipping Tulsi, and he's chanting Krishna's name. People from the village heard about how Narada Muni transformed his heart. So they started coming and bringing all kinds of fruits, vegetables, and grains as an offering. So, you became a great saint. Narada Muni's your guru. Here, accept what we have to give you. So he kept, and every day was getting so much, more than what he needed. It was too much. By this time, Narada Muni had already left. And then after some time, Narada Muni decided to bring one of his close associates, another sage, with him. I forgot his name. Do you remember? Angira Rishi. It's possible. Yeah. I'm not sure yet. I'm very. By the way, in Lord Chaitanya Lila, Srivas Thakur is Narada Muni, and his brother is that Rishi, Angira Rishi. That's Srivas Thakur's brother in Lord Chaitanya Lila. So they're very close. So they together, they went to go visit. He said, I want to take you to the earthly realm, and I want you to visit one of my new disciples. And the Rishi looked over, and he could see that Mrigari saw that Narada Muni was coming, and he was offering obeisances, and he was getting up to go greet his guru. But on the way, he was walking very crooked. So he said, oh, dear Narada, why is your disciple walking a crooked way? What's wrong with him? He's not walking straight. Is he all right? Something wrong with the guy? and then Narada Muni said, oh, just look very closely. See what he is doing. and he's with his dhoti, he's shooing away the ants that are on the road, so he doesn't step on them and hurt them. So he became completely transformed into a humble, non-violent, non-aggressive, kind soul within a very short time. And then he finally got to be with Narada Muni, and Narada Muni asked him, "How are you? How's everything?" He said, "I'm being supplied and maintained with more than what I need. It is actually it's too much. Is there anything you can do about that?" It's too much. And he said, "Okay, from now on, don't worry. You'll just get what you need for the day, and no more and no less." Um, so it's the power of a pure devotee to transform the heart. It's something we have in our life. Mrigari, the fortune for him was that he accepted, and then for us, we have to accept. The mercy is there, the process is there, everything is there available to us, but we have to accept it somehow or other. We have to make that effort. I think most of us do on some level, but as far as I'm concerned, my inner struggle is that I'm realizing that I'm delaying the inevitable. I'm delaying it, and deliberately too. I know in my life I can take the process of Krishna consciousness and apply it in my life more completely, more seriously. But it's obvious to me that I'm delaying the inevitable. I'm thinking, okay, in a few more years. I'm thinking, okay, I can't do this, let me do that. And in one sense, it's okay because Prabhupada says step by step, it's a gradual process. But if we want to take complete shelter, if we really want Krishna in our life, I don't think we'll be the loser in any way, shape, or form. I think we'll be the gainer in a tremendous way. We'll feel satisfied. Everything will be maintained for us, just like Mrigari was completely taken care of. And we have, for us, our founder Acharya, our Param Guru, our Jagat Guru is Srila Prabhupada. And also we have our own. Some of us have our own gurus, but also just understand the Srila Prabhupada's potency. Prabhupada means at whose feet other masters bow. That's the real meaning of Prabhupada. So you have masters, but you also have masters of masters. And Srila Prabhupada was and is preeminent among spiritual masters. One reporter was a little aggressive, asked Srila Prabhupada, "So you're everybody's spiritual master?" Like that, in an aggressive way. Prabhupada paused for a little bit and he said, "Actually, I am everybody's servant. I'm the servant of everyone." That's the qualification of a master, actually. If you want to know who a real guru is, it's the one that's actually serving Krishna but also serving everybody else. And it's true, it's a fact. I mean, who can contest or dispute the fact that Srila Prabhupada was serving this entire planet by offering Krishna consciousness to all of us? It's beyond understanding how great his offering to Krishna is. Every moment of his life is geared to making an offering to Krishna. We're very far from that. At least I am. I mean, I offer food to Krishna once or twice a day. That's about it. Offer something, whatever we can do, Krishna will appreciate. Any questions? Anything in the purport? I think we kind of covered everything. Just to understand that in the spiritual world, everyone's united. That's also another thing. United Nations here, everybody's disunited. Prabhupada said they're not united. He said, just see, every time I drive by, there are more flags going up. That means that everything is getting split. They're not uniting. They're gathering together to disunite even more. So it's in the material attempts at creating a harmonious utopian reality, at creating something of a world where everything is beautiful and great. You can't do it without Krishna. It's impossible. How can you? How can you? It's just not in the realm of possibility. You cannot make a peaceful, pleasant world without including the creator of the world. He created everything, he gave us everything, so you can't, in any way, shape, or form, ignore him and expect that your life is going to be successful or happy, or it's just impossible. It's impossible. He gives us everything. He doesn't ask for much in return. He really doesn't. You know? And here we have proof that Krishna actually loves his devotees. In the Bhagavad-gita, you could see that Krishna took a subordinate role. And he accepted the role of a charioteer. Chariot drivers, you know, it's not a very great position in one sense, you know. But more than just, you know, out of love for Arjuna, his devotee, he said, okay, I'll take the role of a chariot driver. And part of the duties of a chariot driver is not only to drive the chariot, but when the chariot is in full swing during battle, um, the way you can figure which direction the warrior, like Arjuna, if he wants to go left or right, he kicks you on your waist on the right side with his foot to tell you to go right, and he kicks you on the left side to go left. Because you got to imagine, you got a battlefield with 640 million soldiers, and everything is in full swing. You got arms flying everywhere, heads flying everywhere, arrows. It is just inconceivable, the intensity of action that's going on this battlefield right now. It's a full-on war. 640 million people fighting around you. You're on the chariot. You're trying to focus with your bow and arrow, and you're trying to aim at your target. And a lot of times they have to use their mouth to recite mantras. They recite the mantra, they shoot the arrow, and the arrow goes and does its thing. It's targeted to one person, or it's a brahmastra, or it's some kind of water weapon or fire weapon. You have to pronounce a mantra to do that. So Krishna is just very vigilant at maneuvering through all this. And then Arjuna is focused on fighting. But the role of protector of his devotee is imbued in the chariot driving, because he's really out to protect Arjuna. And then at the end of the day, after the battle is done, the horses, the chariot driver is responsible for taking care of the horses. He's responsible for fixing the chariot if there's anything wrong with the chariot. So there's a nice painting I saw. It's an older painting, where Krishna's by a river with the two, I don't know, it was like four, with the horses that were on the chariot, and the horses are like, there's some blood on the horses, and then Krishna's washing the horses, you know, he's washing them. And then another lecture I heard not that long ago was saying that Krishna also was in charge of feeding the horses. So it's like, you know, it's an all around thing, you know. It's not just a small kind of affectionate gesture that Krishna takes. It's a loving reciprocation. So that's why the Bhagavad-gita is actually, the whole book is devotional service. The whole book is bhakti. It's bhakti yoga. It's a loving exchange between Krishna and Arjuna. And then we can also have that in our life somehow. You know, we're actually searching for love. That's what we're searching for. When we look at this person, that person, a friend, or a wife, a relationship, whatever it is we're looking for in this world, we're trying to get some love out of it. Some real love is not possible in the material world. Sorry to say, it's just not possible. I'm not saying it. If you read all the Shastra, there's countless of stories of people just going through this whole attempt at not just enjoying, but actually genuinely trying to find love. You will not find it in the material world. Prabhupada always said, he said, you might find a little bit with a relationship between the mother and a child. Selfless love. But deep, satisfying, internal love that keeps increasing is only possible in relationship to Krishna. It's an understanding, Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad-gita, it's a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. So once you understand and accept the fact that only with Krishna can you actually be satisfied and have a loving exchange with another person, and he's the supreme person, and then that's pretty much you're on your way to becoming fully liberated, nitya mukta or nitya siddha, and as opposed to nitya bada, which means eternally bound. So, I think there's like that. All right. So, no more questions? Oh, wow, Jai. Jai, thank you. Hare Krishna.
You said how besides Kirtan and Japa, we need also to engage in prayer.
Naranjan Swami, he made the point. He said they asked him, well, what do you think is lacking in our devotional practice as a devotional community? And he said prayer.
Okay, but my understanding was that Maha Mantra is our prayer because we ask Krishna to engage us in pure devotional service.
Right.
And it seems like it is the ultimate prayer, like it includes everything, because what else really, what else do you need to pray for?
In the ultimate sense, that's a fact. It's true. In the ultimate sense, a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada says, doesn't ask Krishna for anything. But it's also nice for the consciousness to absorb yourself on an individual level and specifically pray for something or someone. Like, let's say you have someone who's close to you who's suffering in some way, and you really want them to benefit, and you stand in front of Radha Govinda and you say, Radha Govinda, it's not for me, but can you please help them? Can you please help them? It increases your relationship with Radha Govinda. At the same time, Radha Govinda feel like, oh, that's nice, he's praying for them. Maybe I don't know this person, but because my devotee likes this person, maybe I'll help them. There's also something there, It's another aspect of devotional service. Praying. Yes.
Also, there's the verse that has the 9 kinds of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasam, Sakyam, Atmanivedana. So my name at the end. So that's hearing and chanting, remembering, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet of Krishna, Vandhanam, prayer, Archanam, deity worship, Archanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandhanam, Dasam, Sakyam, Atmanivedana, and then service, direct service, friendship, and self-surrender. So just to elaborate on Kaliya Krishna's response, because it's not everything's like kind of black and white in different categories. So the verse makes the distinction between Kirtan, and Japa is Kirtan, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is Kirtan, and Vandanam, prayer. At the same time, they are the same, but they're different. Like, for example, philosophically speaking, just to give a realization, like when we go out and distribute books, when we did, when we're really absorbed, then what makes it truly successful is that it's actually prayer. So the way to actually be successful in preaching is that you're actually praying to the Lord at every moment. You're actually having the Lord speak through you, like when He's giving a nice class. So Lord Vishnu is giving him intelligence what to say. So if you're a proper vessel for Krishna, that's how it works. So that's prayer. So on the one hand you can say these are different types of devotional service, but on the other hand, one is non-different from the other, and therefore you're correct. But at the same time, Niranjana Swami's comment that Kaliya Krishna is appreciating has some point, because in other words, sometimes devotees may forget that Kirtan is prayer. They may forget that. And therefore, to help us get the point, sometimes it's nice to directly engage in prayer distinct from the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, but saying, Lord Krishna, I've got this going on, and this one. I'm not necessarily sorting them out properly in the way that would be best for my service to you. Please guide me. So,
That's true. I think there is examples of devotees for each of these items. I think prayer was Akura, if I'm right. So also Srila Prabhupada, I think it's in the 11th chapter of Universal Form, it says engaging either in all of these processes or just one of them is enough to take you back home. So simply if you spent your day praying in a traditional sense, and you could see in other religions, it's a practice that's prominent. It's very prominent. Christianity certainly, they also have rosaries, but the actual, I was in church for my sister's funeral a few years ago, and I saw, older lady. She got down on her hands and knees, and she was praying. She was praying for something. I don't know what. It's good or bad. But I was like, I was touched. As she actually got down on her knees. So there's some devotion there. It's a mood that puts you in a subordinate position, and it puts Krishna in a, okay, you're the enjoyer, you're the goal, you're the creator. I accept you as such. I am not a master. I'm just, a small, tiny living being. Please, help me in whatever way that you're praying. So it's a means of deepening your relationship with Krishna also. All of them are. Remembering Krishna, remembering Krishna's pastimes. The most potent items are probably the hearing and chanting, I would say. But it doesn't mean that someone else was praying all the time. Jesus Christ was known for praying a lot. At least you see a lot of pictures where he's praying for the welfare of the world, which, I've never done that. I don't know if I'll ever get to the stage of Krishna consciousness where I'm actually praying that the world is a better place, or that the residents of planet Earth are happy. I don't know. That's a deep level of Krishna consciousness. You actually not only care for you, your friends, and your immediate circle of family or acquaintances that you have, but you actually deeply, genuinely care about an entire planet's population. That's a very deep Krishna consciousness. That's a different realm of compassion. It only can happen if you're connected to Krishna, who's actually the most compassionate. There's no doubt that Krishna is all loving. It's just we have to remove the doubts that we have about that. But ultimately, Krishna is all loving. So praying is good. I'm going to start praying. I feel bad because none of my prayers are always very spiritual. I guess, begging from your father for help isn't wrong. What can we do? We're tossed around by some big waves, and we're a little tiny. You know. Just when you think everything's all right, boom. And then you get some air, everything's, boom. Especially sometimes for devotees. You know. Krishna's like, it seems like Krishna's in a hurry to want to get you out of here. You might be delaying, but hey, you know, I know what's right. You know, I know what the medicine is. You know, it's ultimately for your best interest. You know. Oh, go ahead, Carrie. You had a question.
No, I was just gonna add to what
Okay.
you said. I don't know if it makes much sense now. I just remembered something that I heard a long time ago, that when we pray, we're not praying for like any material, gratification, but we're basically praying for the Lord's mercy. And I feel like for me it's worked. When you go in front of Radha Govinda and you pray for their mercy to allow you to chant more rounds, or to allow you to do more devotional service. I think that's a good prayer a good thing to pray for.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a few instances in my life personally where I remember I was desperately praying, and Krishna really came through in a very unexpected way, I was surprised. You know, he just figured out exactly what to do to get me out of several situations that I was in. So way beyond my capacity to ever figure out how to do it. I mean, if I sat down and tried to figure it all out for days and weeks and months, I wouldn't have been able to do what he did. You know, just we can't navigate this. This is Mama Maya Duratyaya. You know, this is also his material energy. So he controls everything. He's the controller. And he knows, how it's child's play for him. He wants to see where we're at, I think, internally. And the Radha Govinda, I was just in front of them not that long ago. It's amazing that God appears in the form of the deity. It's just amazing. We can have darshan of Krishna and Radharani. It's really far out. And they're so loving. It's really far out. And if I'm sure we all had some moments of reciprocation with the deities, where we've felt Radha Govinda's mercy, but or any other deities that we might have a relationship with. We've seen on some level or other, we've actually seen Krishna smile, and it's not our imagination, or you could see the Lord is smiling. It increases your faith, and it's mercy that they come and they accept to take on the role of being worshipped in the deity form. It's really far out, and it's really a love. So, and also Krishna can appear anywhere. Krishna can appear out of a page of the Bhagavad-gita. Krishna can smile right out of the page. If you look at a painting, Krishna can be, he can smile at you right from the painting. He's not limited. He's unlimited. He can do anything. He's in every atom. So all these objects around us, everything in the world is made up of these atoms. I think the description in the Bhagavatam is that you get three atoms together, and then you get another hex atom, and that's like, then you start to see the atoms through the sunlight. You can see them as little dust particles, and if they collect together. And then Krishna is in every single aspect of the whole material creation. So it's far out. Oh, all right. Sorry. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm very grateful, and I pray that Srila Prabhupada gives all of you the chance to take up Krishna consciousness and be satisfied in a loving relationship with Krishna. it's really the goal of life. It's really the goal of our life. There's, you know, so many examples out there, but this is for us. This is we have it right here. Take shelter. Jai Hare Krishna. Thank you.